So I feel like there's a brand spanking new Habit Rouge flanker on the horizon, especially since a follower of mine sent me some images of one called Habit Rouge Spirit. I posted about it over on the communities page. If you haven't caught that post, please go catch it. But yeah, I think there is a new flanker on its way called Habit Rouge Spirit. It's in the PARFUM concentration, and I'm assuming it's going to launch sometime this year, very soon. It comes after the PARFUM edition of Habit Rouge that launched last year. So I felt like I should do a video on all the Habit Rouge flankers out there that are on the market, and if one sounds great to you and it's on its way out, you might search it out and get a bottle for yourself. So find out about Habit Rouge coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian. We're talking about Habit Rouge Guerlain's long-standing men's fragrance. Originally launched in 1965. That's the Eau de Toilette. Let me see if that's the right one here. So it didn't come out in this bottle, by the way. Recently, Guerlain put all of their fragrances in this kind of L'Eau Medial collection bottle. So they're all uniform. But throughout the years, they've gone through different bottle changes. And finally, it's in a uniform collection. All of the Guerlain men's fragrances come in these bottles. But the first one was launched in 1965, created by Jean-Paul Guerlain. And then I believe it was reformulated in 2003. And at that time, they launched an Eau de Parfum. So we have those two classics that are still selling. Those are the earliest renditions of the Habit Rouge DNA. But since then, there's been other fragrances, especially we had the Parfum last year, which is this in the most gorgeous colored juice, as you can see. The previous year in 2023, we had the Rouge Privé in this most gorgeous red bottle, blood red, dark red. And then the year before that, we got the L'Instinct, which is my least favorite, absolute least favorite Guerlain Habit Rouge flanker. But in this video, I'm also going to talk to you about Dress Code. This is the first launch of Dress Code. I believe 2 years after this launched in 2015. The second version was 2017. The bottles changed. It was not a clear bottle at that time. And there's also the Low, and I feel like there are still bottles selling of the Low out there. But also, if you stick around till after the outro, I'm going to talk to you about another fragrance if you're looking to elevate your Habit Rouge experience with a more niche offering that to me is kind of in the same ballpark of the Habit Rouge DNA. So let's go ahead and get started with the Habit Rouge Spirit. So yeah, a follower of mine sent me some images of a fragrance they received when they went to buy Habit Rouge Parfum. Apparently the retailer didn't have any stock, and they sent them a bottle of Habit Rouge Spirit. So we shall see if it's different than the Habit Rouge Parfum or it's similar. The cap is different if you look at the images on the community page. And also the artwork is a bit different, but still in the same color, slightly purplish red tones in the bottle. So I'm anticipating this. We'll see how it is as soon as it launches, if there's any changes, but it is in Parfum concentration, just like the Parfum from last year, which leads me to talk about the Parfum. So far, it's my favorite flanker next to the Rouge Privé. Both of these are amazing, and if you layer these two together, you have an explosive experience, by the way. If you haven't tried that, please do. Because they're, in the end, both the similar DNA, but they go in different directions. Habit Rouge Parfum, to me, is more of a gourmand take on the Habit Rouge DNA. And actually also kind of gets closer to the Dress Code version of Habit Rouge in comparison to the others. Now, it is a lot more concentrated than Dress Code, and I enjoy it a lot more, but it features notes of rum, vanilla, patchouli. These are the only notes that they list here. I guess there are some slight light leathery undertones here, but it's mostly boozy. It's vanillic, lots of woods, very powdery, and then you've got the sweet touches and of course the balsamic touches as well. If you're at all familiar with the original Eau de Toilette from 1965 or the Eau de Parfum from 2003, then you're familiar with the DNA. It's just they have sort of like a remix. They've basically taken the formula and changed things around and amplified the boozy, more gourmand sides of that masculine fragrance. So I feel like Habit Rouge Parfum has become very unisex now, but still keeping its DNA somewhat. You'll still be reminded of the original Habit Rouge from way back in 1965. I don't know, maybe you're not that old, you didn't wear it at that time. Maybe you wore it in the 90s or 2000s or even in the 2010s. If you wear Habit Rouge Parfum, you'll be reminded of the original DNA, but certainly it goes into a boozy, vanillic, gourmand direction with an overdose of patchouli. Absolutely love this. It smells amazing. If you haven't got your nose on it, please do. I love the Habit Rouge DNA, and I absolutely love that Parfum edition. So going back 1 year in 2023, Guerlain launched Habit Rouge Rouge Privé. So I feel like this is a limited edition, and it was limitedly available here in the States. But since the end of last year, when I was traveling in Europe, especially in September when I was in Paris, I did see bottles of Rouge Privé still selling. So I don't know how it is right now. I don't know if there's stock out there. If you can get a bottle, get it. This, next to the Parfum, is on the Animalic side. The leather is extremely amplified, so if you're not into Animalics, I would stay away from this one. But as I was saying earlier, when you layer Habit Rouge Rouge Privé with Habit Rouge Parfum, you get a great explosive experience. It is to die for. So both fragrances, you know, the formula in the end, the main formula is the same, so you're experiencing multiple different types of amplifications of certain notes in each of the fragrances. So it has leather, so they brought out the leather in the Rouge Privé. Of course, it has vanilla in the original, and they brought out the vanilla a lot more. When you combine these two out, you're going to balance these two, and it smells really, really to die for delicious. But Rouge Privé has a lot of leather, patchouli, vanilla, iris, orange blossom, bergamot, and ginger. And again, the leather is intense. It is a bit on the animalic side. You've got to be into these kind of fragrances. It is a designer, so it's not going to get extremely animalic, but it can come off rough for some people, and I've heard it from comments here and there. And again, if you're not used to wearing these kind of fragrances, might be a bit challenging for you, but I absolutely love this. It's such a great fragrance and a great flanker. They've given us two amazing flankers back to back for the Habit Rouge collection of fragrances. I'm so happy with these two. If you can get these two, get them. Get them ASAP, especially if you're into sort of, you know, kind of like an old school DNA of men's fragrances, but, you know, modernized for sure, because those two, even though they're keeping the old DNA there, they have been modernized for modern noses. All right, so we're going to talk about the EDP next. I feel like going back to the original in Eau de Toilette, launched in 1965, the original Habit Rouge, I felt and I've read that was the male equivalent of Guerlain's very popular Shalimar. So they took that Shalimar formula or DNA and gave it a more masculine treatment to it, still keeping the vanillic touches, but the Eau de Toilette is quite citrusy. The Eau de Parfum is also citrusy, but it's toned down compared to the Eau de Toilette. Leather has been amplified, but still vanillic and things like that. But both of the versions, the 1965 Eau de Toilette and the 2003 Eau de Parfum, are created by Jean-Paul Guerlain. And again, I've read that they reformulated the 65 version of the Eau de Toilette and modernized it in 2003, and then also launched an Eau de Parfum at that time. So the Eau de Parfum features notes of lemons, rose, vanilla, carnation, leather, rosewood, benzoin, sandalwood, bergamot, orange, patchouli, amber. Fantastic fragrance. For a long time, I was actually really into the Eau de Parfum. But recently, maybe like a year or 2 years ago, I have put away all my previous bottles because, you know, fragrances do get reformulated down the line. And I'm not saying that the Habit Rouge fragrances that come in these bottles are reformulated, but there was a difference between the two. So I put away my original bottles. But for a long time, I was really appreciating the Eau de Toilette. I like that whole contrast of warmth with the vanillic notes in here and the slight leathery touches with the freshness of the citruses like lemons that are in here. Really, really enjoyed it. Since then, since the bottle changes, and then they launched the L'Instinct, which I cannot stand, then the Rouge Privé, which is fantastic, and the Parfum, I've been using those more than the Eau de Toilette and Eau de Parfum. But the classics are where it's at. This is what the original fragrances were, and worth checking out if you're into, you know, classic fragrances and appreciating the classics and see the DNA of the original and where it came from, I highly recommend you get your nose on either the Eau de Parfum from 2003 or the Eau de Toilette from 1965. But of course, it was reformulated in 2003. I think it was just a bit modernized. This is what I've read online. I'm not 100% sure. I don't, sit with people over at Guerlain and, get history and things like that. But this is what I've read online, that it was reformulated in around 2003. And of course, they launched an Eau de Parfum at that time. But going back to the 65 edition, it's lemons, rosewood, rose, carnation, vanilla, orange, bergamot, sandalwood, leather, amber, benzoin, patchouli. The other thing I should mention with the rose that's featured in here prominently, it doesn't appear in the Parfum and not a lot in the leather, the Rouge Privé as well. And actually they've completely eliminated it because in the Parfum I don't get rose whatsoever, but it's definitely noticeable in the Eau de Toilette and also the Eau de Parfum. But really great classic men's fragrances. Love Guerlain's fragrances, totally love what they do. And I'm glad that they keep these classics for us to appreciate because they've kept them in pretty good condition, I think. Even though we complain about the reformulations and the thinning and all that kind of stuff, the fragrances still seem like what they smell like, at least from what I remember. I remember getting my nose on Habit Rouge for the first time in the early 90s. That's when I first smelled it. I can't remember smelling it before, probably have, but I used to smell everything when I went to the department store, so I probably put my nose on it, but really wore it and appreciated it. It was in the early 90s. Both Habit Rouge and also Vetiver were fragrances that I discovered in the early 90s. And again, these are the classics. These are definitely worth checking out. And if you haven't, please do. And you'll really experience where Guerlain's Habit Rouge in its current formulations come from, when it was the Eau de Toilette in 65 and of course the 2003 edition in the Eau de Parfum. Alright, and then this next one is my least favorite, as I said earlier. It's Habit Rouge L'Instinct. There is something sulphuric marine in the wearing experience and I cannot stand that smell. There's no credit of it, but when I wear it, it comes off very sulphuric. Like there's sulfur or something fishy marine on skin, and I absolutely despise that. So it's a turnoff for me to wear this one, even though I've worn quite a bit of it. It doesn't appear at all times, then all of a sudden it appears, I'm like, ugh, I don't like this. But it's woods, amber, vanilla, marine notes, sulfuric notes, citruses, and cannabis. And I think I'm telling you about the marine notes and the sulfuric experience. Those are not credited, but I get a major dosage of it, so I wanted to highlight it for you guys and let you know, in case you're not into the marine notes, use caution with this one. I think it's a disappointing release. I don't know what they were thinking, because when they can give you something this good, the Rouge Privé, what the heck is this? It's pretty bad. And cannabis, I don't know if I like the idea of cannabis with the whole Habit Rouge DNA. Maybe you do. Maybe you're a fan of the L'Instinct. I'm not. But add a comment below. I feel like it's a modern take on the Low. The Low came out in 2011, but let's talk about that. It's a Thierry Wasser creation, and it's bitter orange, vanilla, jasmine, hazelnuts, and patchouli. When you have the word Low or O, it means it's water, so it's a thinning down of the original. It's a watery take on the original, but they've thrown in hazelnuts this time. So it comes off very fresh, watery, easy to wear, lighter, and things like that. I liked it. I didn't love it too much. I felt like it was too thinned down, but I feel like some people appreciate it. They want the DNA of Habit Rouge, but they don't want the intensity of it, and they would go with something like this. So I think the floral notes in here, some of the other notes kind of give it more of a fresh edge, and so it's not as vanillic, but very fresh and watery when you're wearing it, but not marine. At least I don't get a lot of marine touches from it, maybe slight, but it's just a lighter take on the original. I think that's still selling nowadays, so you might be able to find it online, but it doesn't come in this kind of a bottle, as you can see. So you're not going to be able to find it in that bottle. That's why I think this is on its way out. If they had moved it in that kind of a bottle, it means it wasn't discontinued and things like that. But since it's not available in that bottle, it's on its way out. And also I feel like the L'Instinct is the answer to Low, the modern answer. And it's a complete dud for me. I hate it. I don't like it at all. I appreciate Low a lot more than L'Instinct, but let me know what your reactions are to those two Habit Rouge flankers. And then last but not least, before I talk about dress code, I should say there have been other flankers out there before. I never got my nose on them, or I did, I just don't own a bottle. Like there was the Sport, there was also the Extract. I wish I had those, I don't have them. There might be one or two other flankers as well, I don't have them sadly. But the dress code, I have the first edition of the dress code, not the second. The second one was a not clear bottle, it was a darker black and kind of red bottle. But here we've got a clear bottle with that kind of design work. And then it says dress code. I actually really love this, and I'm glad I'm reminded of dress code with the PARFUM, because dress code was a bit more of a gourmand take on the whole Habit Rouge DNA. So they brought out the gourmand touches and qualities of the original Habit Rouge and threw in a praline note to give it more of a gourmand edge. This was created by Thierry. It's woods, leather, pralines, tonka beans, vanilla, bergamot, neroli, rose. The rose does appear here. The neroli does as well. You do have that kind of chocolatey touch. The leather appears, but everything is nicely balanced. I absolutely love this. I do have a couple of backup bottles of this, thankfully. But in this version, not the second. And I don't know what the differences are between this version and the 2017 version of dress code. I never got it, so it's a bummer. But a great fragrance. But if you are having a challenging time buying this, I feel like the PARFUM will satisfy, because it's not only a lot more concentrated, to me it comes off a bit more gourmand as well. But dress code was a great flanker, I think, and definitely worth mentioning. But let me know your thoughts on this collection of Habit Rouge fragrances, and let me know what you think about Spirit, Habit Rouge Spirit, which comes in a PARFUM concentration. Are you excited about this? If you know anything about Habit Rouge Spirit, do let us know. Add a comment below. But that's all I have for you guys today. Stick around till after the outro so I can talk to you about a great alternative to the Habit Rouge fragrances in more of a niche style. But if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So the fragrance I wanted to highlight here from a house called MAITRE Parfum et Gantier, called Parfum de Habit. So it's called Parfum de Habit, and Habit Rouge, Parfum de Habit. So I feel like they were trying to imitate Habit Rouge when this, I believe this came out in the 80s. So it's a classic niche fragrance from one of the very first niche houses, MAITRE Parfum et Gantier. And if you like it leathery and a bit more robust and intense, and not a designer-esque fragrance, because I find the mass market fragrances like Guerlain's fragrances a bit wimpier compared to niche offerings. And you're gonna like this one. It's a lot of leather with patchouli, sandalwood, geranium, ambergris, incense, blackcurrant bud, bergamot, petitgrain, vanilla. So it has kind of similar notes, but an amazing take on it. Very masculine, very butch, even though there's vanilla in there. Leather is amplified, aromatics come right through, spicy, but very woody, and a great take on, and like I said, a niche style of Habit Rouge. Not so sweet, but enough sweetness to balance it out. Lots of woods, but earthiness there as well. Spices and aromatics, hands down amazing. And of course, you've got a lot of leather in here as well. And it should give you a great quality wear. Very long lasting, but an amazing take on that whole Habit Rouge-like DNA from Guerlain, but in a more classic niche style from an amazing niche perfume house called MAITRE Parfum et Gantier. Now, I've recommended this house quite a bit. I absolutely love this house, and this is one of the standout masculine fragrances. Anyone that's into the Habit Rouge DNA is going to really appreciate this, especially if you want more of an elevated experience in comparison to Habit Rouge and all of its flankers. Anyway, that is Parfum de Habit from the house of MAITRE Parfum et Gantier, and that is all I have for you guys today. See you later. Bye-bye.